Thank you. Um, I, I'm just gonna advance because my presence is probably gonna look different than all the other ones. But I have a tendency to, um, I don't know, stand out sometimes. Um, so, and if my Wi-Fi cuts out, I apologize about that too. It has a tendency to do that as well, and you can't really have a good, I guess, Zoom conference if it doesn't cut out a little bit. Anyways, I am gonna talk about. I guess I should intro. Okay, then
There we
that just like that's a good example of how Wi-Fi's can cut out. Yeah, that was definitely planned. Um, okay, I'll start and introduce myself. My name is Will. I'm a settler here in Nogojiwanong, and um, I'm strong. I'm ambitious. I'm scared. I'm sad. I'm tired. Um, I'm black. I'm non-binary, and I'm all these things all at once. Um, like many people, I have a daily, I guess, relationship with inadequacy. Um, and I have to not only remind myself that I'm enough, but to be critical of the systems that have historically and continually weaponized themselves uh, out of my favor and out of your favor in different ways. And I think of that being my greatest strength. And I think also one of the biggest reasons people get into conflict of any sort is because um, we have this false illusion of each other's realities. Um, and in terms of leaving no one behind, I think um, one of the paths to gaining or regaining that coherence with each other is to tell our stories, um, and to merge that huge divide of lived realities. Um, and this is a story about how and why I, well, mostly why I cut off all my hair. Because if you saw my bio picture, it was way bigger than what it is now. Um, and I didn't know writing this how much context was needed, or wanted. Um, so I'm just gonna, yeah, read what I wrote like 30 minutes ago or before this because I think that what is um the most close to home is that authenticity, and there's no true way of preparing that. Um, okay. I cut off my hair because there was unhealthy dreads and pain. I felt pain because of the dreads, but it wasn't the dreads that were the source of the pain. Because my hair was the only thing white people complimented me on. I cut off my hair because I never learned how to care for it. I never learned how to care for it. I never learned how to care for me. Because I'm mixed race and my caregiver is white, my hair lived in a white city. My hair lived in a white province. My hair lived in a white world. The other side of my family was not the place to go because it was shamed upon to not be able to take care of yourself. or in my situation, it was also not okay to be trans either. My hair held and holds a lot, and so does everybody's. It held the thrown gum and slurs on the school bus, and the strength it took to cut it out and show up the next day. And I have many stories written and analyzed just like this one. Um, and I actually was asked to write a lot of my experiences, my bad experiences with racism in school, specifically with the target to uh, make it better and kind of be a exemplar of somebody left behind. Um, and I have that document, and I named it Pain on a Platter. And I think that the awareness of it all and telling the story of not those specific stories, but the amalgamation of it, of all of them, and the consciousness of having to write pain on a platter so that it could be acknowledged and acknowledge me as a person. I think we all have that feeling of having to prove ourselves, having to um, be understood before respected. Um, while it should be the other way, we should be respected regardless. But I find joy in sharing and connecting because with those specific understandings of how we are, um, beauty with storytelling, and it changes people in that way. Both the listener and whoever's speaking, it leaves like traces, much like a dormant seed, I guess. Like it may not germinate, like this idea may not germinate within you right now, but in 12 years, I could have said something, or your reaction could have made me feel some sort of way that could crack open and bloom in the future. And one of my all-time favorites, Alok Ved Menon, who wrote Beyond the Gender Binary, um, said this about shame, and it made me think for a long time um, about my own shame and other people's. Um, the thing about shame is that it eats at you until it fully consumes you. Then you cannot tell the difference between their shame and your own. And I'm gonna get into my projects now, but that was just the context for why I wanted to do them or even thought about them. Um, but firstly, the Black Art Archive is like a little brain baby that is being executed in partnership with the Canadian Federation of Students, Black Caucus. Um, and we are aiming to host 2 digital spaces, one that features an interactive page for digital art that students can engage with from anywhere, um, basically a curation and an interactive map with an attached archive that seeks um, to make visible the history of Black students across Turtle Island, um, with hopes of being that Black curricula I would have wanted to see when I was younger. Um, and so we will create our future, and we will thus be creating our past and history. Um, and the the quote that stemmed this idea, I guess, um, was from beloved Toni Morrison. Um, the function, it keeps you from doing your work it keeps you explaining over and over again your reason for being. Somebody says you have no language, and you spend 20 years proving that you do. Somebody says your head isn't shaped properly, so you have scientists working on the fact that it is. Somebody says you have no art, so you dredge that up. Somebody says you have no kingdom, so you dredge that up too. None of this is necessary. There will always be one more thing. And so that thing of postponed joy is something that is very present in many different ways. And I think that's what instigated that. And secondly, the Equity Index, which is a far younger project. And I'd love to partner with anybody or just talk if anything resonated. And I could put my email in the chat. Is a method of progress tracking, I guess, for institutions that center racial equity and intersecting social issues, colorism, sexism, transmisogyny, ableism, making a framework, creating a pathway for entry into racial equity work for institutions and organizations. Since many administrations lack the capacity within their leadership and or infrastructure to address issues of inequity, and create totally like a shared understanding and a shared care of racial equity across different jurisdictions and throughout institutions to move the care from individual to communal, and communal accountability and communal responsibility to each other. And going off to university, many of my friends were telling me that they had no way of knowing in advance that a professor or the programs within a university were not with them, because in high school it was kind of like default, this is going to be equal, but we make it the best that we can. But in university, everybody has bright ideas of what it's going to look like, or at least they did, and what they ended up with wasn't as good as they were hoping. And so creating that, I guess, standard or default, and guiding people and meeting them where they are, I think is the way to go. And yeah, I think that's all I have.
Thank you so much, Will, for sharing in such a authentic and vulnerable and beautiful, beautiful way. It was so lovely to hear your experience and to hear how you feel. And I think sometimes what happens is when we lead projects and when we talk about sustainability in general, we talk about the data, we forget the people behind that data. We forget that there are real feelings involved, that when we talk about inclusion and exclusion, we forget that these are real things and real feelings and real experiences that can't always be wrapped up in like a metric or a report or an activity. So it's so refreshing for you to come and share how you feel and your journey, and for inspiring us to do more work and to really, again, remember the fact that these stories, they're the ones that are supposed to be inspiring the projects and not kind of writing the projects for us. And so I really loved your presentation. I loved all your presentations. You are all three very inspiring people. And I'm sure everybody in the chat feels the same way. Please share your thoughts as well. Let us know how you feel, what resonated with you, what moved you, if you can relate to these emotions and these stories. If we can, now this is a great time to move on to the Q&A so we can expand this discussion and open the board so we can hear also from our participants.